As I just mentioned before, there are two major external environment disruptions for Taiwanese firms. First is the Sino-US trade frictions. Okay, the Sino-US frictions. Okay, because of the Sino-US frictions, how can the Taiwanese firm reacting? There is some strategic countermeasures to this kind of trade war and the trade frictions. Number one is the relocations. Okay, relocation issues. Okay, relocations. There are crisis managements. Okay, investment or divestments and the supply chain altogether. They are linked. Okay, together. Okay, they are looks like the one things. Okay, but in fact they are interrelated. Think about that. For the traditional industries, because there is a US and China, maybe in the future they were decoupling. So a lot of the firms, they decided to localizations in China, traditional industry. They try to localize, okay, in China. Then they are depending on China's, they sourcing locally, they output locally, they marketing locally. If the whole supply chain are being localized, so there is no problem for any Sino-US trade war, anything that kind of things happens. Okay. Another one is the so-called relocations issues. You know that we have a so-called China Plus One policies. What is the China Plus One? That means we should have a China, right, production base in China, plus Vietnam, plus Indonesia. Okay, for example, okay, China at least the plus one. Okay, Taiwanese firms when they manufacture in China, their export to US, there is imposed by the extra tariff. Then we can using Vietnam as our production base, and we can export from Vietnam to the United States. Okay, so this is the company called China Plus One policy for the Taiwanese firms. So nowadays, a lot of the Taiwanese enterprises, they are all saying that we should have a China Plus One, the factory in China, and another one outside China, or simply moving back to Taiwan. Okay, that means the China plus Taiwan. Okay, moving back to Taiwan. And for the high-tech industries, okay, in the high-tech industries, there is a much more complicated in the high-tech, because the American try to prevent Chinese technology to bypass the American. So now they have some strict restrictions for the Taiwanese firms. Once they are using the American technologies, they cannot become the Chinese supply chain. Okay. For example, Huawei. Okay. Huawei actually it was a major smartphone chips producers. Okay. And you know the TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Corporations, are the key producers for Huawei chips. Okay, for Huawei chips. Okay, but because of TSMC, they are some of the technology, some of the machines are from the United States. So you know usually in the international the firms, a companies, a product, once you have a very value added more than 30% at least, okay, or 40%, you can say it is the product of these countries. Okay, because in an international trade, we like to apply the so-called countries of origin. Countries of origin certificates. Countries of origin certificates. That means the products is Taiwan product, or the product is a German product, the product is a Japanese products. Okay, once you like to have the country of origin certificate, at least you should have about 30% the value added in this country. So you know, American at first he said, if the technologies we have 30% or more American technologies, then it was not allowed to sell to Huawei. Okay, you know TSMC say, okay, no problem, because our cutting edge, the technology productions, okay, we fit American regulations, no problem, okay. Then American further reduced to 20%, then to 15%. The TSMC still say, no problem, okay, we still can supply Huawei, okay, because TSMC is a highly advanced technology. Only 7% is American technologies. So American in the end, he said, if there is anything percent, at least as long as there is American technology, as long as it is not 0% American technologies, otherwise you cannot deal with Huawei. Okay, you cannot deal with Huawei. So that means it is very strong measures try to isolate the Chinese high-tech companies, particularly Huawei. Okay, because the TSMC only using 7% of American technology, but it is still not allowed for TSMC to manufacture for Huawei. Now there is still the high-tech war between China and the USA. Okay, so now they have a very strong side effect. You mean China now, after the blow by the Trump administrations, and China now decided to have its de-Americanizations. The American tried to isolate China. China is also trying to decouple de-Americanizations. So now you can see a lot of the Chinese high-tech companies, they are trying to building up the American-free production line, American-free technologies. They are using the technologies, okay, 100% free of American technologies. So in the future, okay, there is another possibility, the de-Americanizations and the de-Chinaizations. Okay, so the Taiwanese firms, okay, now they are struggling, okay, because they have to set up two companies, one for China, one for USA, okay, one for China, one for USA, and then there is no interactions between the firms. Of course, it is not the globalizations, right? It has become American center and the China center. Okay, it's just like two completely isolated economic blocks. Each side is trying to isolate each other. So this is some dilemma for the Taiwanese firms. And also, we company have to think about they should reinvestments in China for China, okay, and also the localizations in China as well, okay. A lot of high-tech industry, Taiwanese high-tech industry, in China they localized for China. In Taiwan, they are doing some de-Chinaizations, okay, just follow American centers, okay, policies. So that even in one single corporate groups, you can split into the China line and the American lines. So this is the Taiwanese firms in responded to the Sino-US trade frictions. Okay. Another one is the strategic countermeasures to the coronavirus disruptions. Again, it's decentralization supply chains, crisis management, which will have the safe productions, and the digitalizations, something like that, digital transformations. Okay. The decentralization supply chains, okay, so that means the firms, they are trying to have a few decentralized supply chain, not to over-concentrate it in one particular regions, okay. And sometimes they should have 2 or 3 different supply chain, okay. And also, for the safety productions, okay, they should investing in the smart productions, in the facilities, and in the human capitals. What is the safe productions? For example, no man's factory, smart productions, okay, no human beings involved in the production line, okay. Try to using the smart machinery to replace the human beings So this is smart productions. Okay, so we should invest it in those kind of facilities. Okay, but also at the same time, we should train the personnel to be able to operate those smart machineries. Also, digitalizations in commerce. That means productions has to be smart, the productions. And also for the commerce side, sales side, distribution sides, you have to have the digital transformations. And also we have to thinking about the crisis management issues. That means once there is a crisis, how can we respond to the crisis quickly and correctly? Okay. In order, altogether, if we combine the pandemics and we combine the Sino-US trade war, okay, anyway, there are some similarities. That means the supply chain should be shorter. That means we should localize, particularly in some basic need and a strategic material, we have to be localized. Okay, and also, in the past we have the so-called offshore productions, then become the nearshore productions. Now this is called the reshore productions. Okay, particularly for the American firms, it was outsourcing to the offshore productions. Now they should come back to the nearshore productions, relocated back to Mexico, for example, then back to America, right? But I know it's difficult because American is extremely high cost countries, and also American people has been forgotten how to run the manufacture for long. So there might be a lot of difficulties to revive manufacture in the United States. Okay. Also, we have to decentralize, not only shorters, but also the decentralized. Okay. What is a decentralized means? That means that we should not dependent on one firms or one countries. Okay. This is a decentralized supply chain, and also multiple sources. And in order to have a quick response, okay, in the previous session I mentioned that the company they should have the information sharing or data interchange. Okay, once you have a data interchange, each one can understand, the suppliers can understand the buyers, its inventory conditions. Okay, so when we can deliver in time, okay, to this. Okay, so data interchange is become a must even in the just-in-time era. Okay, so now because of the pandemic and the possible disruption in the future, the data interchange will become a necessity for the firms. Okay. Also, because of the decentralization supply chain, we have to have digital transformations. Okay, we should have a common e-platforms. Okay, so where a lot of the buyer and suppliers, we can meet each other in these digital platforms. Once we were in the digital platforms, okay, then we can easily to have multiple sources, and also we can easily to sell out, or we can easily to find alternative distribution channels to sell out our outputs. Okay, and also for the safe productions, we should think about the automations, right? Automation, machinery, smart productions, okay, and the 5G and the IoT applications. Okay, so that means the product itself, it carries some information with itself. Okay, also we should have a safe inventory. Okay, and how can we calculate the safe inventory? Then we should have big data technologies and artificial intelligence. Okay, to calculate that. If it is the case, then we can say we have the so-called hygiene and safety productions. That means that the least human beings are involved. Okay, so that means that it is much more safe, even for the future. Once there is another virus pandemic comes out, then we should have no problem for that. For the shorter supply chain, I would particularly like to mention something. Okay, according to these photos, there are some automation machines. They are making shoes. Okay, they are making shoes. You know the university where I work with, it is the National Yunnan University of Science and Technology. We are located in Yunnan County, in the central part of Taiwan. In the central part of Taiwan is the footwear cluster. You know in these regions we have 7 or even 9 or 10 big footwear manufacturers. Those footwear manufacturers then invested in China, has been invested in China, then extended to the Southeast Asia countries. In the past, they are labor-intensive industries. You know, actually, a lot of people say because the footwear are so difficult, it is the last castles for the labor-intensive industry. You know what I mean, right? That means the footwear industry is the most difficult industries, okay, to be automatics, okay, to be smart productions. But however, in the year 2015, Adidas built a speed factory in Germany. Nike, with American foundry manufacturer Flextronics, made shoes in North America. You know the Flextronics is a technical company, right? Why Nike cooperate with the Flextronics? Okay, because Flextronics is good in smart productions and automations. Okay, so you know the Adidas and the Nikes, they are doing some revolutionary changes in the footwear industries. But even though they are trying to do so, but in fact it failed. Okay, because as I said, the shoes or the footwear is extremely difficult, okay, to be made purely by machine without the human labors. You know even though they failed, okay, but there is one Taiwanese company, they are doing it quite successfully. This is Taiwan's Fengtai. Okay, Fengtai. Fengtai is a Taiwanese footwear company located in Yunnan, okay, not far from my universities. Actually, this company, they donate a lot of money in the Yunnan University to have a so-called Fengtai foundations. Okay, we encourage a lot of the international students and particularly the research PhD students to join us. The Fengtai will provide the scholarships for the students. Okay, you know that in year 2023, there are expectations that 20% of the products of the next Adidas brands will be automated. So now, you know the industry 4.0, you know according to some economists, it is weapons for the advanced countries. They can use capital and technologies to offset the labor advantages of those less advanced countries. So that means even though Vietnam, they have 90 million populations, okay, Indonesia, okay, you have abundant human resources, okay, but in the future, the Industry 4.0, they may have strong impacts to those labor abundant countries because technology now they can offset the labor advantages of those countries. Okay, so you know we are expecting, and a lot of the scholars are predicted that in the next 3 years, 1.3 million of the robots will be put into the manufacturing. Okay, so the International Labour Organizations (ILO) predicts that in the next 20 years, 56 Southeast Asian workers will face the crisis of being replaced by the robots and the automations. Okay, so that is future challenges, okay, for the Southeast Asian countries. Okay, now let's go back to these charts. Okay, once we are trying to have the shorter supply chains, okay, so that means we have to be localized. Okay, we have to be localized and decentralized strategies will be more preferred in the future. Okay, so you know that in the globalized period of time, Okay, firms they are prefer this. Okay, we are preferring the global strategies, global strategies, or we prefer the transnational strategies. But however, because of the shorter supply chain and decentralizations, localization strategies now will gradually more emphasized and gradually more become more important, okay, than ever. Okay. Okay. In order, you can see the safe productions. Okay. What is the so-called safe productions? How can we have the immune deficiency? Okay, from the inventory point of view, in order, you can see from these charts, this is the low risk, okay, companies, where you have a higher number of the alternative sources, okay, and where you have a much more days, safe days of the supplies, okay. So in the past, we hope that this is the most efficient one. No inventory, okay, just one alternative, and very few inventory buffer, just in time. Everything is in time. But now actually we are preferring low risk the inventory systems. Okay, that means the number of the alternative sources and the higher days of the supply will be preferred, okay, in the future.